I'm really nervous today because I'm interviewing this woman, Cindy Gallop, who is this dynamic force of nature who's changing the relationship in which we speak about sex and changing a movement, a social movement around sex. This all kind of came about because I'm a really curious person, and I was oversharing with girlfriends just about life and intimacy and getting older and being a mom versus not being a mom and intimacy and love. And it got me thinking about it and thinking about sex and thinking about intimacy and what's normal and the taboos and those sort of things. And so it brought me here to New York, and I'm gonna be speaking with Cindy Gallop, and she had some really wonderful things to say about sex and changing the way that we talk about it. So thank you so much for meeting with me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I was wondering first if maybe you could say just a few things about who you are and your background.
So I'm Cindy Gallop. I am 58, and that's very important because I tell people how old I am as often as possible. My background is over 30 years working in brand building, marketing and advertising, and I have a startup that is a complete and total accident called Make Love Not Porn.
I love hearing that you let everyone know your age, because that's something that I do as well. I mean, I'm 37, but there's, I was in Hollywood for a while, and there's this stigma about saying your age in fear of people thinking you're...
Oh my God, and that is so ridiculous, because honestly, the older you get, the more you bring to the table in terms of life experience, wisdom. There is no substitute for having been around the block 50 million times and being able to deal with anything life throws at you. And so everybody should value everybody the older they get, because they just bring more and more to whatever it is you're doing.
I totally agree with that, and I know that really rings true for me. And the older that I get, the more I don't give a shit.
Absolutely. That is the only way to live your life and be truly happy, and also be true to yourself in everything you do. What
made you go into your new startup?
We are the world's first social sex video sharing platform that celebrates real world sex as a counterpoint to porn in order to socialize and normalize sex and talking about it, make it easier for everyone to talk about, that then enables us to promote good sexual values and good sexual behaviour.
Right.
And so anyone from anywhere can submit to makelovenotporn.tv videos of themselves having real world sex.
Right.
We are very clear what we mean by this. We're not porn, we're not amateur, we're building this whole new category on the internet, social sex. Mm-hmm. We're like Facebook would be if it allowed you to socially, sexually self-identify and self-express.
No, and I love that, and I think that it also allows a dialogue, a healthy, social, normalized dialogue of what sex is. And that's kind of how this conversation really started for me, was that I was talking to girlfriends, and I'm very candid with my friends and very open and honest about sex and intimacy and what that looked like and what it meant and how often, and being married versus not being married. And it was interesting how some people spoke with their partners about it, and I think that's so important.
Oh my God, Jen, absolutely. Because so Make Love Not Porn's single-minded mission is one thing and one thing only. We want to help make it easier for every single person in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex.
And it's so interesting how intimacy is for a man, versus a woman, or after having children, and what intimacy looks like for each partner, because it changes all the time.
Absolutely.
And asking for intimacy in different ways. I know for me, sometimes I get really turned on when my husband washes the dishes.
Yeah.
And having to say,
I think that's sexy as hell when a man does that, by the way.
Right? I mean, it's so stupid. But it's kind of meeting each other in the middle, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be like, oh, I like it when you do this, which I think is also really important.
There's a whole sort of bunch of myths in popular culture. For example, that sex should be spontaneous. You get turned on, and actually there is nothing wrong with making it transactional the way you're talking about.
Well, after children, let me tell you.
No, exactly. And secondly, in scheduling it.
Yes.
And sex is one of those things where, when you make yourself have it even though you think you're not in the mood, the more you do it, the more you want it.
Yeah, actually. I agree with that. From what I'm getting from this too, is the discussion. That's the biggest thing, to be transparent with your partner and to discuss with your partner.
Jen, you're absolutely right, because I said earlier that Make Love Not Porn is an accident. Mm-hmm. What is no accident is that my background is over 30 years working in advertising in the business of communication. I know, therefore, that everything great in life and business is born out of great communication, and sex is no different. Because the one thing I know from 9 years of working Make Love Not Porn is that everybody in the world is dying to talk about sex.
Right.
Because we don't.
We don't, I know, and it's just like tied up in this ribbon in this box, and it's embarrassing and scary, and it's like you said, you don't want to scare someone off.
And so I have this conversation all the time with parents, okay, because it is critical that you talk to your kids about sex. The average age today at which a child is first exposed to porn online is 8 years old.
I know, I saw that in
Yeah,
your TikTok.
horrifying. And so I say to parents two things. First of all, you cannot begin talking to your child about sex too early. And by the way, when I say that, I don't mean literally talk about sex.
Yeah.
I mean, the very first moment your child asks where babies come from, touches the genitals, the most important thing, by the way, isn't even what you say as much as how you say it.
Right.
Never ever get visibly flustered, embarrassed, angry, shut them up, slap them down, Just answer them completely straightforwardly, calmly, honestly. And when you do that, you open up a channel of communication that will always be there for them through the rest of their lives as they grow up, and they will be very grateful it is.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I say to parents is, today, when you talk to your children about sex, you also have to talk to your children about porn. Okay, you cannot separate out the two things. And by the way,
But at what age do you do that? Like,
as early as possible. And by the way, this is a lot easier to do than you might think. So it's very simple. What you do is, and by the way, you dial this up or down depending on the age of the child. But all you have to say is this. So, darling, you know how we watch, videos, cartoons, movies together, and you know how in those movies and cartoons things happen that aren't real. Well, there are also videos, movies about sex. And, things happen there that aren't real either. And because of that, they can be quite confusing. And so we'd rather you did not watch those till you're older. But if you ever come across anything like that, come and talk to us about it and we can explain it. That's all you have to say, because you've then done two very important things. Number one, you have set up in their minds that when they stumble across this, when someone shows them something on their cell phone in the playground, when they go around the neighbour's house, it's not real. And secondly, you have said, come and talk to me about it, because you will really want them to do that.
I mean, we're very honest in our home about body parts, and we don't really play around with, they're not names, they're the vagina and the penis. And funny enough, just the other day, I was looking through my computer and we were looking at birthing pictures, and I didn't realize my 4-year-old was right behind me, and he came up behind me and he said, "Mom, what's that coming out of your butt?" And I said, "Well, actually, that's your birth, and you're coming out of my vagina." And he didn't even want to know about it. He just wanted to see the blood. Like, he just said, "Oh, what's that blood?" And he didn't care about, it was so not like a thing. And that's kind of how we talk about it. I mean, I have to say, like, the sex talk for me does, like, I get nervous because I feel like, well, I have a 6-year-old and I'm obviously not ready to have that conversation. My parents had it with me at a very much older age, even though I feel like I knew what it was.
But the important thing, Jen, is don't have the sex talk.
Yeah.
Talk about sex.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, do not see this as some horrible occasion. We've got to work out what age is right.
Yeah.
Instead, as you go about your daily life with your kids, see what crops up that you can use as a jumping off point to just chat about it naturally, normally, in the same way you did about, your son's birth.
Yeah.
I designed Make Love Not Porn around my own philosophies, one of which is that everything in life and business starts with you and your values. So I regularly ask people this question: what are your sexual values? And nobody can ever answer me, because we're not taught to think like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Many of us, if we're lucky, are born into families where our parents bring us up to have good manners, a work ethic, a sense of responsibility, accountability. Nobody ever brings us up to behave well in bed.
Yeah.
But they should, because they're empathy, sensitivity, generosity, kindness, honesty are as important as those values are in every other area of our lives and our work where we are actively taught to exercise those values. And so the conversation with your children, needs not to be just about the mechanics and the body parts, but it also needs to be about sex is a wonderful source of pleasure. You are going to want to have quite a lot of it when you grow up. And
that's one piece of it.
And it's therefore really important that you understand that you need to operate good values and good behaviour in this area as much as we are bringing you up to have good values and good behaviour in every other area of life.
It's interesting, my son actually came home recently, and one of the lessons that he had learned at school. I think he tried to hug someone and was rejected. And the teacher said, you know, you need to ask permission before you can hug someone and get permission. And, you know, it was setting that boundary, and it was very simple. But it's an important lesson, you know, in life and all around.
You know, the irony is, the single biggest turn on in the world is to be in bed with somebody and to know they're having a bloody amazing time because of you. And who wouldn't want to bring their children up to ensure that every one of their sexual partners felt that? And who wouldn't want to live in a world where we inculcated in society a universally, openly talked about, operated, understood, and very importantly, aspired to gold standard of what constitute good sexual values and good sexual behaviour. That's the world we're trying to build with Make Love Not Porn.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that philosophy and that concept, and it's something I think everyone should bring not only into the bedroom, but into their lives. I mean, sex is life. It's how we procreate. I mean, it's what keeps us going as a society. I mean, it's in order for us to continue on, we have to have sex. We also need to eat and have water and nutrients and sustenance. So it's kind of bizarre that we aren't able to talk about that. We can say, hey, I want a cheeseburger, hold the cheese, but we can't have sex and say, ooh, I like it like this way, or can you do this, or try this.
So I am regularly asked by journalists, Cindy, why do you think we're so repressed about sex? And I ask this so often, I now have my answer down pat. 3 reasons. Number 1, centuries of religion, repression, socio-cultural dynamics in every single country in the world. Number 2, the patriarchy, because historically, every single institution, including religion, has been male-dominated. We have never been allowed to bring the female lens to bear on sexuality, and the world is poorer for it. And number 3, the world makes it incredibly difficult to disrupt social narratives around sex. You fight a battle every single day when you try to do that, as I can testify to the past 9 years. Many people try and give up because it's just so difficult. You need many more people like me who will not give up no matter what.
I actually just bought a book called It's Not the Stork. And it's actually all about the body and the human body, and this is a penis, and these are your testicles, and this is the vagina and the vulva. Because I'm going to start having those conversations with my 6-year-old soon.
You will have those conversations with your 6-year-old, and then everything in popular culture will defeat the beneficial impact of what you've done. What I'm trying to do with Make Love Not Porn is have, you know, the normalising, socialising effect we bring flow out to everybody else, because we need to change this in every single area of popular culture. Because, you know, unfortunately, and by the way, obviously as a parent you can have a huge amount of impact, absolutely, but nevertheless, all around us, social conditioning, subliminal messages.
It doesn't matter, it still hurts, and you're affected by that, no matter how strong you are.
No, exactly.
I really appreciate it. This has been a really impactful conversation, I know, for me, and creating this dialogue and getting this dialogue out there. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to have this dialogue with you and with your viewers. And I love the fact that you too absolutely want to carry this mission forward. So I'm thrilled about that.
Absolutely. Thank you.